Imagine waking up in the middle of surgery. No painkillers, no anesthesia, just a blade, a surgeon, and your own screaming. Now imagine that this was just Tuesday, a completely normal day in ancient medicine. But here's what will blow your mind. Our ancestors were not as helpless as you think. Long before hospitals, before sterile gloves, before the reassuring hiss of an anesthesia mask, humans were performing brain surgeries, amputations, and cesarean sections. And somehow, people survived. So how did they do it? Stick around, because what you're about to learn will make you deeply grateful for modern medicine, and even more impressed by the people who came before us. Let's go back. Way back. We're talking 6,000 to 10,000 years ago. Archaeological evidence shows that ancient humans performed a procedure called trepanation. That's drilling or scraping holes directly into the human skull. And the jaw-dropping part? Bone regrowth around those holes proves that patients lived afterward. These weren't accidents. These were intentional medical procedures. In ancient Egypt, surgeons were documenting their work as far back as 1600 BCE, in a text we now call the Edwin Smith Papyrus, one of the oldest medical documents ever discovered. It describes 48 surgical cases, wounds, fractures, dislocations, with a level of detail that feels almost modern. Egyptian physicians understood infection. They used honey as an antibacterial agent. They stitched wounds with linen thread. These weren't witch doctors waving bones. These were professionals. Meanwhile, in ancient India, a physician named Sushruta, often called the father of surgery, was performing procedures around 600 BCE, including rhinoplasty. Reconstructive nose surgery. His textbook, the Sushruta Samhita, described over 300 surgical procedures and 120 surgical instruments. He even had students practice incisions on vegetables and dead animals before ever touching a living patient. Sound familiar? It should. Because that's basically what medical schools still do today. But here's the uncomfortable truth about all of this impressive surgery. It hurt. A lot. Managing pain was one of the greatest challenges ancient medicine ever faced. Without modern anesthesia, surgeons had to work fast. Speed was the only mercy. A skilled surgeon in ancient Rome could amputate a limb in under a minute, not because they were being careless, but because every second under that blade was pure agony. So what did they do? They got creative. Brilliantly. Desperately. Creative. Ancient cultures around the world independently discovered something remarkable. Certain plants could dull pain, induce unconsciousness, or calm a patient just enough to make surgery survivable. They didn't know why these plants worked. No concept of alkaloids, no understanding of neurotransmitters, but they observed. They experimented, and they passed that knowledge down through generations. First, Mandrake. One of the most powerful tools in the ancient surgeon's kit, used across the Mediterranean and Middle East. The mandrake root contains scopolamine and hyoscyamine, compounds that cause sedation, hallucinations, and memory loss. Surgeons would mix it into wine and have the patient drink it before the procedure. The patient would become groggy, confused, and largely unaware of what was happening. Not perfect anesthesia, but it was something. Then there was opium, derived from the poppy plant, used as early as 3400 BCE in Mesopotamia. The Sumerians literally called the poppy the joy plant. By the time of ancient Greece and Rome, opium was widely used to manage pain, induce sleep, and calm surgical patients, applied as a drink, a paste, or even inhaled as smoke. Opium was arguably the most effective painkiller the ancient world had. In ancient China, the legendary physician Hua Tuo, around 200 CE, reportedly used a herbal powder called mafacin, dissolved in wine, to render patients completely unconscious during abdominal surgeries. The exact formula has been lost to history, but scholars believe it contained cannabis, datura, aconite, and other potent botanicals. In the Americas, indigenous cultures used coca leaves, the very plant cocaine is derived from, as a local anesthetic. Incan surgeons performing skull procedures would chew coca leaves and let the saliva drip directly into the surgical wound, numbing the area. They also used alcohol extensively, pushing patients to the edge of intoxication before the first incision. And speaking of alcohol, it was a near-universal numbing agent. Beer, wine, and fermented spirits were used across Egypt, Greece, Rome, and medieval Europe to lower sensitivity to pain and reduce anxiety before surgery. Application methods varied widely across cultures. Herbal mixtures were drunk as teas or wine infusions. Pastes were applied directly onto wounds. Smoke was inhaled through pipes or from burning herbs placed near the patient's face. Some cultures used what was called the Soporific Sponge, a sponge soaked in a mixture of opium, mandrake, hemlock, and mulberry juice, held under the patient's nose until they lost consciousness. This method was used in medieval Europe well into the 13th century. But all of this came with enormous risk. The line between a sedating dose and a lethal one was razor thin. Too much mandrake, wrong amount of hemlock, an oversaturated sponge, and your patient simply didn't wake up. Ancient anesthesia killed as often as it saved. Every surgeon using these methods was walking a tightrope, every single time. So the next time you're drifting off under the warm, measured comfort of modern anesthesia, take a moment. Think about the thousands of years of desperate experimentation that led to that moment. Every herb tested, every failed dose, every patient who didn't wake up, why, all of it. Inching humanity closer to the medicine we have today. Our ancestors didn't have the tools we have, but they had something just as powerful: the will to heal. And honestly, that's never changed. If you found this fascinating, hit that subscribe button right now. Next week, we're diving into how ancient civilizations treated mental illness. Trust me, you are not ready for that one. See you then.